I'll call it when they're ready.
Are we ready at your end?
I think so. It looks like we're starting the recording now.
All right, fantastic. Then I'll call the meeting to order at 4:30. We'll, I guess, start with the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 5th, 2022 PVHC.
Any discussion or anybody would like to add? All right, then you approve the minutes, vote aye. You oppose, vote nay.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, I called that wrong, but thank you. Okay, then we'll go to public discussion. Karen.
Hi, I'm Winnebago County Supervisor Karen D. Powers. I live at 2510 Village Lane. I serve District 25. My concern is with the agenda item PVHC staffing crisis. Rumors have filtered down to us in the county board that there is movement afoot to sell Parkview to a private owner. My concerns are myriad, not the least of which is the loss of a state pension, which our nursing staff have worked for decades. I've been at county board meetings where we have honored retirees with over 25 years of service. I believe I remember one with 42 years of service. Parkview is a good place to work. It's a good place to spend one's final years. Parkview receives about $14 million annually from the county via the tax levy. This is taxpayer money. Last year, PVHC returned about $3 million to the Parkview Enterprise Fund, around $3.2 million the year before. If this sale goes through, we will fight to return those funds to the Winnebago County General Fund. It is taxpayer money. It is not for private profit. The goal, the bottom line of a private agency is to work for shareholders. The best way to increase profits to shareholders is to reduce services to residents. If bed use is down, it's down all over. It's not necessarily because of poor staffing. People today, in the midst of a global pandemic, are scared to put their loved ones in a facility which runs the risk of being forced to bar visitors, leaving the most vulnerable members of our families alone and isolated. We may be looking at another year or two of possible large-scale outbreaks. One possibility would be to close an entire facility neighborhood, moving everyone to the remaining neighborhoods until the population increases. In the public interest, or the ITPI, has found that staffing cuts occurred where privatization had taken place. ITPI has found workers' wages and employee turnover were most negatively affected at privatized homes. ITPI found quality of care deteriorated. Nursing homes in areas adjacent to Wisconsin, such as Ontonagon, Michigan, have had to send their residents 54 miles away to Lawrence, Michigan. That's a scenario which could play out here, forcing families to travel long distances to visit their loved ones. Forget about getting one's local clergy person to travel over 100 miles to serve his or her parishioners. Staff in privatized homes report being forced to purchase supplies from an approved supplier, whether it's best suited to the need of the patient. They report having to deal with edicts from faceless entities requiring more and more involved protocols. They report having to spend far more time on reams of paperwork because a for-profit agency the reason for is to create, produce, and inflate a paper trail. Making a county facility a private, for-profit institution is not in the best interest of the people we are sworn to serve. If there is no place left for impoverished patients to go, deteriorating health and even death will follow. Oftentimes, people admitted to county institutions are those who have spent down all they have financially. It isn't in the best interest for a for-profit agency to take on impoverished people. Doing so negatively impacts the pockets of shareholders who are looking to make a profit off the elderly and the infirm. I heard about a woman being cared for by her adult children. The daughter had put in her week, and when it came time for the son to put in his week, it was the opening of deer hunting season. So he left his mother with a large pitcher of water as her so-called care. There are too many lives which we negatively hit by privatization. Our staff and their future pensions, patients and residents, family members left with no other options. Thank you.
Is there anybody on Zoom?
Nope, no one on Zoom, it's just us.
All right, then I'll close that part of the meeting and move on to the administrator's report.
Okay. So to start the administrator's report, I have some unfortunate news. I submitted my resignation last week with the county. So I just wanted to inform you that this will be my last meeting here with the new Parkview Committee. As well, we're working on developing an interim plan for that. And I will share that with all of you as soon as that becomes available. So then just kind of moving into the report as a whole, typically what we'll do is review any projects and things that we have going on, our COVID situation, and then our census. So our Parkview Health Center Training Center is up and being built finally. So we're excited about that. We did have a meeting last week. They're on schedule so far with that building, especially in today's world where some of the projects that are out there are delayed from time to time still with supplies and things like that. So we're happy with that update as far as that. So does anybody have any questions on that facility?
Ask the question since I know I approved it. When do you think that will be?
Like mid-October. Yep, they're on schedule for mid-October. Okay. Okay. And then as far as our COVID update, you'll see we're still in the same world we've been in for the last several years with our screening process. Masking, we are open for visitation. That has not changed for several months now. We're anticipating that will continue to remain open with our safety precautions in place. Last week, we did some facility-wide testing. We did end up with 4 total staff positive and 1 positive resident last week. So we are seeing an uptick in the community. The resident is out on our COVID unit currently. We retested all of our other residents and their results have been negative thus far. We'll continue testing for 2 full rounds of negative tests until we have all negative tests. So that's pretty for testing. Yeah. So we're required to continue testing for a minimum of 2 weeks after our last positive test. So as long as we don't have any more, we'll test 2 weeks following. The trend we usually will see is we'll have 1 pop up and then we'll extend that testing out for a period of time. So we're hopeful that that won't be the case, but we do have some positives trickling in. And then as far as our vaccination update as well, we did just have a booster clinic here last week. So for many residents and staff are continuing to encourage the booster dose of the vaccine as they become eligible. So we will continue on with that as far as our COVID update.
Presuming that every staff member has to wear a mask while working, but not
correct. So they are required to be vaccinated or have an approved exemption. Yeah. So we do have some that have a religious or medical exemption on staff too. Any other questions, COVID? Okay, and then our census review. You'll see in your packet of information, we print out a monthly census report, review the prior month. So we're looking at April of 2022. Our average daily census for April was 113. That's been pretty standard. If you see on the right side, your total residents go back the last three months, look back there. So we're 113, 115, 114. That's pretty standard what we've been saying. With our COVID situation, we do have to close for admissions from time to time when we do positive cases. So that affects our ability to admit and bring new residents in. You'll see under, again, on kind of the left side of the form here, admissions and discharges. We admitted 12 people, discharged 13. That's also pretty standard. We're still bringing in mostly short-term rehab residents. Some long-term care are continuing to trickle in as well. You'll see, I like to review just our number on our waiting list is 15. That's also pretty standard. We kind of hang between that 10 and 15 number of people on the wait list. Our admissions coordinator keeps pretty close tabs on the people in the community that are waiting to either admit from home, from another facility, or whatever it may be from surrounding areas. Some of our wait lists are people that are waiting to get residency here in the county so that they're able to be admitted. Much of the reason our wait list is as high as it is because of the COVID restrictions still with having to close for admissions, as well as Supervisor Powers mentioned, people are still pretty fearful to have their loved ones come into a nursing home, given kind of our unknown situation still that we're dealing with. So are there any questions? Sure.
You know, I was thinking. So I feel this is a critical situation. We can. We are asking 168. I know we have not been at 168 persons. We had been before COVID 56. So my concern is I'm looking at 113. I understand 115, 113. I think at some point we might be getting there. Yeah. My worries is with not enough residents and the income. I worry about that. So I'm hoping something happens, and I know you have all the great information about families don't want to bring family members here because they're fearful they won't get to see them. But is there any other reason that you see that we're hurting? Because I think that difference is substantial to me.
The other reason is staffing. Right now we have 2 full neighborhoods. So that not only affects our long-term wait list, but also our ability to admit the short-term rehab, which come in under.
And I'll bring the rest of that discussion when we get to that, because I'm sitting here wondering, when did this get critical?
Right.
When did it reach the critical point that we had to post?
Right.
Okay.
We have tried to address the low paid issue with staffing at PNF meetings some time ago.
Right.
Are you still having a problem with the way the pay is set up so that people are not wanting to come to work here because they can't make a decent wage?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll get into some more of those details on our discussion item about, I guess, some of the other reasons where it may not be our actual hiring wage that plays a factor, but there are other factors that our competitors pay that we are currently not.
Type of thing. When you can today, let's hear about that.
I just have one other question, just related to consider review, please.
Yep.
And just kind of go over the concept of the neighborhoods.
Yes.
Please.
Sure. So our building is split into 8 different neighborhoods. There's 4 on the first floor and 4 on the second floor. And they're ultimately small little households. They're made up of about 20 to 21 beds per neighborhood. They have a small kitchenette area that they share, a living area, activities, things like that, kind of on their own neighborhood. So when we're referring to that, it's one designated neighborhood. Many of our neighborhoods historically have kind of had a certain criteria to meet the needs of our residents. Ultimately, we have one rehab neighborhood currently. That is the one that's closed because we're able to kind of filter those people into other open areas of the facility as we're getting those referrals, all the way to an advanced level dementia neighborhood. So really, when we're admitting, we really want to be careful looking at those populations and making sure that we're putting people, a short-term rehab resident may not be appropriate to go with a long-term advanced dementia resident, but really making sure that we're continuing to look at that in the population that we're serving currently, because that's also changing now too. And I'd be happy to stay and tour you if you want to check it out and see it. Putting a visual to it is sometimes easier to understand.
Sure, or we can set up some time.
Sure.
Anything else on the administrator's report? More discussion.
Okay. So I will just introduce Ashley Paul. If you, so for those that don't know her, she's our director of nursing. I asked her to attend this because she's a wealth of knowledge, first of all, and then also with my transition she likely will have some involvement with next month's presentation to the board and the committees accordingly on the proposal that we're here to talk about. So it doesn't sound like it's a secret really to anybody here that we are in a staffing crisis. I guess to answer your question, Mary Beth, we've been in a crisis for a period of time. Right. And we're really to that point, and I think the determination for us to start using that verbiage is our lack of being able to continue to operate as we had historically as a result of staffing. That has not been the case. We through the pandemic, we've been able to manage as much as we were. Yes, our census dropped, as everywhere did, really. However, now we're getting to a point where we can't get enough people in here to open these neighborhoods and service the people. It's not for lack of referrals. It's not for lack of a wait list. It's because of staffing at this point. So of course that affects our revenue and everything really how we operate. Currently right now today, I just asked HR for an update just right before we walked into this meeting. We have 40 open CNA FTEs, 5 hospitality aides, 10.5 nurses, 1 financial associate, 1 custodian, and 1.2 food service assistants. And I'd be happy to give you those numbers as well again. 40 CNAs, 5 hospitality aides, 10.5 nurses, so that's RNs or LPNs, 1 finance associate, 1 custodian, and 1.2 food service assistants or food service personnel. So with that large number, obviously, that's right there is enough people to staff the 2 neighborhoods if we would be able to staff up to that amount. And you know, that's a large amount. We're looking at some different proposals that we'll talk about just briefly at this point, and what we're looking at, how we can maybe transfer some positions and just transition with the workforce that we're dealing with as well. We acknowledge it's not just healthcare, it's the regular workforce right now in general. Yeah.
What's the total number of staff? You know, that when you're operating fully, what was the number that you're operating?
Do you know that?
Well, I think our full-time equivalent is like around 220 if we're fully staffed.
You know, and we realize we haven't been to that point in many years prior to COVID even as well. However, it has not significantly impacted our ability to, you know, admit to the neighborhoods. You know, a part of this is also looking at our staffing ratios and our reputation. Parkview has a phenomenal reputation for the quality of care that we provide. Part of that is because of the staffing ratios that we do run compared to other like facilities. We don't want to have to get to that point where we're starting to compromise care because we are doing a higher ratio of staff to residents that they care for.
And you say the area, other areas,
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's not unique.
General,
Sure.
is it something in the outlook from the nursing profession not wanting to work with geriatrics in general?
I don't believe so. I think other entities that are non-nursing home structured, the hospitals are struggling, other medical facilities are struggling too. It's really, I guess I don't know the answer. Maybe you have a better pulse on
Is
that.
there a dividing line somewhere in there? I have heard that. My daughter is a nurse. Where is the dividing line somewhere?
I think your passion has to be here. I mean, we've had a recent nurse come from the OB department because she wanted to try geriatrics and ultimately just said, you know, my heart said, working with babies and children. we also, like the affiliations with the technical colleges and things that we have, their enrollment is significantly down. Since they said, you know, the classes were withheld and things during the pandemic because they couldn't do their clinicals and things to get people pushed through school faster. So everybody's essentially schooling got pushed back. We still have nurses that are LPNs that are waiting on their RN just simply because of the pandemic. So they're not getting through school as fast. And then people for new enrollments are significantly down as well. We have taken, you know, we were preceptorships for RNs, for LPNs. We have CNA classes held here at the facility where we would have the students come in and work with the residents. We haven't had any of those because they don't have the need, because they don't have the students. So it's just healthcare, I think, in general, there's not as many people entering into the field.
And they're building an ancillary building for training CNAs. And we're short 40 CNAs. I see a crisis right there. So we're putting up $1 million building and no one is going to help.
Yeah.
And that's sad to me, very sad. So we need to fix this somehow. But my other scenario is I'm anti-bonus. I'm anti-signing bonus because I know so many people who have had employees come and you promise them in 90 days you get this bonus. And 91st day they leave and go somewhere else and play that game. I think you might get wrapped up in that.
You have to tie that with some, I'm sorry for cutting that. You have to tie that with a finish of education, a finish of a year or a finish of 2 years. You know, you can't allow the dictate of a bonus at a particular by a particular time frame and then have them there's got to be
You
something
can do that, but then if they don't want to stay.
So
you can't make people.
if I may just, two, I guess, comments based on your comments. Number one, the ancillary building that's being built, you know, had several years of delay and now that's coming to head. We have been doing the CNA course here on site consistently throughout the entire pandemic. So we are training new staff. We are doing regular classes. However, that was under an emergency temporary standard, and we are not able to continue that unless we have the existing.
We have to have
facility. So in order to continue.
But we're still, this is critical that we're short that many CNAs. And it's not a good development. In fact, Holly Tech is a good connection, but if they aren't enrolling, where do you find these people?
So we're going out to a school tomorrow. So we have affiliation from the schools as well. We're doing the hiring and we actually have a full academic interviews tomorrow. We're looking with students and speak in their career class. They're reaching out to the local school. Wonderful.
Schools when you come to that, high school, high school.
We have, I look at it, private, I think you have to do, you say, hey, if you get trained with us, you get a job for 2 years, and you get make some money, and then you maybe a couple of conversion for you another time. Give you one and a half, and you have to get aggressive. I mean, I'm not for anything. I understand that takes time away from you or a nurse from going to meet the students, but
And then just speaking, I guess, a little more to Supervisor Cox, that I guess is kind of our goal. We're really looking at this as a critical need. Where are we at right now? What can we do immediately to hopefully alleviate our crisis in some capacity? And then looking at some of those long-term things like continuing education and things like that, because the nursing, you know, I just listed multiple positions that really build on top of each other. You can start as a hospitality aide and become a CNA and continue to progress through that. So we're trying to also look at what we can do to be competitive with our other like facilities that offer those types of things for those people to come and pay tuition reimbursement or different things like that, or some sort of incentive to keep them here longer term.
for that, really, we have to get creative. All right, we're filling that committee. I think we have to find different ways. And I know, I was here for a month in rehab, and I know one of the nurses, there's some talk about pushing the university project. A couple years ago, creative. I know when Dr. Pegwell, the weekend, that we have people who just work weekends and not, because they have kids maybe a week. Well, that can survive. You have to staff in the week. So I think we have to start looking at very creative ways, not just retention, but how to get people here.
You have to sell this facility. You have to be salesman. Because that's the only way that's gonna work. Because you're gonna have comparisons to the private. And this is better. Better care, better.
I agree.
If you take a look at how real estate has dealt with their licensing and how they make you take a new course every. Okay, so if a new course, if you want to keep your certification with us, then you need to take these courses. If you finish those courses, you get a little bit of a kick in your bonus part, a little bit of kick in pay. And you also get a new name tag. You know, so you have to tie, that's what I'm getting at. You have to tie the goodness of keeping a job for a longer period of time with these little caveats, these little things that they, these steps that they take. If you can't do that, sure, they're gonna bolt the moment they get there. Bolt the moment. That's not good.
So, I actually work in the healthcare field. I manage some care programs here in this area and for Valley. So, one of the things that we are doing is that we've doubled down on training from within. So making sure that we are educating and providing solid training for the caregiver that would be training all of our new employees as well. So, someone who really understands the policies, the mission, operations, and has significant experience doing that. And so that's a primer into what we are referring to as a career within the organization. We've spent probably this too, spent a considerable amount of money researching what new employees are looking for. And it's not just wages, it's not just benefits anymore. It's having a path. It's a mixture of all of those things. And so if you just have one part of the package, you're going to miss out on them. And so it's creating that solid career path, which having a training center does, and should support that. At some point we should. And then my question actually to that is that open to the public? Like, could I send someone who I would like to become a CNA to that program?
Yes.
So it's open to the public.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a marketing advantage right there.
Right.
Clarity Care used to do all of that. They still do that, but it's not as good as, it's not suggested as being strong of a program anymore.
Sure.
But there's a level of skill that comes with this type of facility that I think is noteworthy and marketable. So that can be added to that element as well. We're also finding that you can have those special shifts, those weekend shifts, and that they're really good if you can afford to pay someone to work those shifts. So they come with a greater rate of pay, which then creates an even further issue of parity within your organization, because weekends are going to be paid more than potentially your day-to-day 40 hours during the week, first shift, second shift people as well. So you just have to be really careful in regards to how you implement something like that. But I think the best thing to do is to create a program that's career driven, where you're building your own employees through your training center, through your good trainers, and having some type of, it's as challenging as it is, being flexible in pay is really one of the biggest factors out right now. And that's a hard one to take because everyone, right now it's okay for everyone to talk about what their wages are. They used to not do that. But the reality is that it's happen. Yeah, it's not an easy solution in any way that we're asking that you're going to probably suggest to us either. But the reality is that you need 5 or 6 different solutions in order to boost where you want to be, and then you have to think about how you're going to sustain on the long term.
Just to kind of fill in as a background for the Business and Department and all staff, we created a Cna care coordinator position over the last 2 years. That essentially works with our staff development coordinator to oversee the training through the facility, and they help with the Cna programs and the overall orientation and onboarding of staff. So they're working very closely with those, I guess, mentors, and then they've developed a mentor program for those staff that are within the facility that are demonstrating leadership qualities to then be the mentor. So we've developed that to kind of changing that system. And I know we're talking about a lot of monetary things that'll be brought to this committee, but there are a lot of things that we've done that aren't monetary. Attendance things, and we have the mandatory overtime here, which is a big. It's a downfall, but yet it's not because staff they don't get rid of it because we don't want to work together. But then kind of rewarding those situations in a way of, okay, well, if you have perfect attendance, maybe then you don't have to be mandated. Looking at stuff that we did, kind of did the staff kind of services. What are you guys for? And how are we help?
It's important. It's real important to get your ear to the ground and know what the staff is thinking before you tell something.
Yeah. And we've really been working hard the last few months of really kind of separating that out. What are the things that we can do policy and procedure wise within our control to allow people more flexible hours? We had a mindset in this facility for having very regimen schedules and shifts and things like that. And that's, just not the reality. If somebody can work a shorter shift later in the evening and stay until everybody's done with supper and in bedtime or in bed at night, that works for us. The cares are being provided. And so we really have been looking at that and really kind of separating those out. That being said, we're in a position where now we need to be doing some monetary things in the immediate future and continuing on. And as multiple of you have said, there's a lot of different options with that. And we're just trying to look at, I guess, what is the best, what's the first thing we need to start with, and then what can we progress towards in the future as well. Yes,
Is there more, I think we all see what the shortage, but is there something that we have in the works for how to address that?
Yes. So getting into the kind of the next part, really where we narrow down our biggest concern, and many of you were around last year when we did the Cna Wage Adjustment. We adjusted everybody. We've done our own wage analysis, our own wage study, essentially with Parkview and all of our positions. Personnel and Finance approved many of our other lower grade positions to come to a higher starting wage. So that's awesome, and we're thankful for that. But with that, in our findings, we found many other facilities offer a variety of different things to fill critical shifts. So you're talking the PM and nights, the weekends, the things that people don't want to sign up to do. And really looking at right now, we're surviving by mandating our existing staff, and that in turn is causing us to lose more people at a rapid pace. So what we're really trying to do is incentivize our existing staff in whatever way we are able to do now, and then also hopefully make that be a incentive for other staff to want to come to work for us as well. So we have 3 separate proposals that we're really looking for, probably for discussion and action at the June committee meetings and then the board meeting. Our first one is our shift differentials. So currently we have shift differentials. However, they are much less than many other facilities. So what we're looking to do overall is take our existing shift differentials, those were approved back in 2017, and really kind of look at the inconsistencies. So there's inconsistencies within the nursing department specifically, different positions get different incentives. And then also looking at kind of equaling that out between different departments and other positions. The hospitality aides that we mentioned as a newer position in the last 3 years or so, they don't receive any differential at any point at this point. So we're looking at kind of evening those out and then increasing some of them for our critically open shifts. Many of our open positions I mentioned are on our PM and night shift. That's kind of the starting place for those people, and we're trying to, how do we make that appealing for those that are coming in and starting their career, and then how do we continue them along that path? So that's kind of our first proposal to kind of try to even some of that out and become more competitive with our other like facilities and what they're doing. The second proposal and the second and third go a little bit more along the lines of incentivizing. We understand the bonus word is not a fun word of anybody. And really we tried to kind of dig into what can we do to incentivize our existing staff, maybe on a shorter term so that we're not having them turn around, like you said, and having them leave after they meet that metric. So the first one is a pre-shift commitment incentive. This will be for the nursing department only at this point, kind of where we're at with it. Really kind of putting some limitations on that. So looking at our schedules are put out 6 weeks in advance. So really looking at what open FTE we have, when they're prepping that 6-week schedule, how many open positions, what shifts are open, where is the critical need, and then making a determination if we're at that crisis level, offering a pre-shift commitment. So then kind of breaking that down, we found this actually from another county facility that was unique. And when I asked about what other people were doing out there, we thought that this would be something to potentially start at Parkview, especially just given the history that we haven't really done anything like this before, where we don't necessarily need to go quite to the same extreme as some other facilities have done. We think that this will be something that would work for our staff. So ultimately kind of making a criteria of commit to a certain number of hours above and beyond your normal FTE, receive X amount of dollars per hour for those additional hours worked, and then incentivizing kind of the end of that 6-week period. If they maintain a perfect attendance or they don't have a sick call or something like that, then also incentivizing by kind of a commitment or completion bonus at that point. So kind of looking at how we can do that. That's on a 6-week by 6-week basis. We can look at that and who makes the decision, and when we're deciding that that's something we're going to offer. If we meet a certain threshold, kind of giving us that control. We're coming into the summer months, and hopefully we're going to see some reprieve of our staffing needs, because we have college students come home, they work all summer long, but then come fall, we get hit again where we have that many open shifts again.
And correctly, these nurses or whatever were working 40 hours, and asked them to commit to work 6 or 8 or whatever for next each week for the next 6 weeks.
Yes, yes. Currently,
Not every nurse.
right.
It's
Yeah.
40-hour a week.
Correct. Yeah, so currently what this will do is allow that opportunity for our full-time 40-hour a week, or, we have a lot of 80% nurses that may be able to commit to up to a full-time status potentially, and then receive this incentive. Right now, what they're doing is we're mandating them regardless. We're telling them you have to stay. They get paid their wage time and a half, but then it's more of a punitive thing at that point. This is kind of the reverse of that, and incentivizing them ahead of time. No. Yeah.
Because they all have life.
Right. Yeah.
So they get it.
Yeah.
But they have a
This would essentially allow us to put out all of the open shifts for that 6-week period and let them choose, which they'd want to pick up.
Say you have to work third shift on.
Okay.
have to work sometime, but not that.
And even with this, the commitment is a completely voluntary thing for that employee. If they don't want to work above and beyond their normal, then they're going to probably run the risk of having to be mandated in a certain situation, but they don't have to commit to that.
So do they have their set 40 hours and then the extra hours, are those considered like flexible scheduling hours?
Essentially, like if we deem, so I'm working on the next 6 week schedule right now. So the next 6 week schedule, I see the crisis is an PM shift, and that's been pretty consistent. So we could say for the next 6 week schedules on our PMs, you pick up X amount of hours, we can offer this for you. It gives them an opportunity to plan their schedule ahead of time. So if they have childcare or things like that, they can plan that out. They get a choice, and that hopefully by most people picking up in advance, they'll be less mandatory.
So we're able to trade schedules as well.
And we're currently doing that right now. The offer for that is pretty minimal. We essentially are just saying, can you please switch to PM shift for the next 6 week schedule and help us out? And this would then in turn incentivize those people that are willing to do that as well on a temporary basis. Okay. So we're working through some of the details and the numbers and then we come with our proposal or final proposal here for next month potentially. The final thought we had was really kind of real emergency staffing incentives beyond the pre-shift commitment. So that's done, hopefully on the front end and hope we don't get in a situation, but we've had it in the last few months, especially where we're coming down to Friday afternoon and we still have 9 open shifts on Sunday. And what else can we do in those cases? So many other facilities offer a certain dollar amount for those when they receive or get to a certain critical level. There are facilities that just offer double time. There are facilities that offer, whatever incentive for those critical, or shifts that are identified as high needs. Looking at how we would then determine that, who's determining that, what is the time frame around determining that. Another piece of it is offering some additional pay for our exempt employees. We have a lot of nurse managers and other staff that are willing to help when we are in a critical need like that. However, they don't get paid for it. So unless they're flexing their hours, they may say, yes, I'll work Saturday, but I'd like a different day after in the week. We're being flexible with that. But some of them are willing to work above and beyond that 40-hour week exempt position. So with that, we're looking at, a set rate for those people when they're working and filling in as a different position or a floor per shift. And then really kind of with that criteria, we're looking at also how can we also then incentivize our full-time staff that are already here putting in their 40 hours a week rather than their part-time. One of the considerations and concerns that we see, and I've actually talked to her colleagues and peers and myself included, is, when you offer certain dollar amount for the more you pick up, the less people are willing to take a full-time status. So how do we really incentivize people to take on a full-time status? They receive our benefits. We have a lot of positive things with that. So looking at that.
Trade time off.
Yep.
Trading of scheduling. Trade time off for the incentive pay or whatever instead.
And we do that currently. Just right now, it's really, those people that are right at that part-time, 60% or so are the ones they'll work full-time and above because they get all these other incentives. So they're then in turn getting our fringes and benefits because they're averaging higher than that status. And then our full-time people really are just left with time and a half.
Bank your time, your incentive time or time that there's no way to bank that so that they could take a larger vacation at a later time.
Well, we approve their vacation, but they're only allotted so much vacation per year.
Yeah.
So we do the vacation scheduling.
They can't move before the hours, so they can't move.
Right now, what we did is on like the weekends, we're challenged on one weekend in particular. So those nurses that are volunteering to do 12-hour shifts on those weekends to eliminate at least one need. I essentially said you can pick your schedule. Go ahead, because you're helping us out. You know, as long as you're maintaining your FTE, what days do you want off in exchange? How can we make this work? Yeah, I mean, it's
We can't do too much. And still.
doing that. We did have 6 nurses do that though. So they liked being able to have that flexibility to take some days off with kids and sports in the summer and things like that, but
I think the reality is that right now, from your perspective, you probably feel like you can't do enough to solve this, right? So the challenge of putting up a wall or a barrier to what we can or can't do could create more, could maintain the challenges for you in regards to trying to solve those staffing things. And so I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Cox, on that. But I guess my concern is to create proposals that offer you the greatest amount of flexibility to match the needs of the facility.
From a labor standpoint, you can't have COA. You can't have, situations that come up so frequently that you start paying off, and then, of course, the employees are able to control. You can't have too much of that at all. Stay within the limits.
I guess the idea is with that in mind, I get that, but the reality is to create, and I'm speaking like it's easy, right? It's not easy. I've been working on it for a year in my current position trying to solve this, and so I completely get it. So, but it's just about trying to create the right packages, the right tools. Sometimes it just adjusts what your need is now, and then you can put it on the next thing. So there's no solid solution on how you're going to overcome from this. I guess my point to the board is to support a flexible plan that allows the staff to be able to fully address the residents' needs, because that's what the goal is here, is to maintain the residents that we have, the ebb and flow of that, but also be able to maintain a strong staffing and enhance, and have more staff available. So,
Because that's a hard sell. Very hard sell. Okay. There's gonna be a reach on this where it's like, how much are we talking? And I believe there's new members and re-elected members that'll say, what is the dollar value? We need to know something. We had that when we went with the raises. And for everything we've got heard from Parkview, we're always questioning. And it sounds great that I understand what you're saying, but it's a hard sell to the county board. So I don't want to overreach, but I want this facility to succeed. So you're short 40 CNAs. You're not going to go pick up 20 tomorrow. So you're depending on your staff to cover. I happen to know someone that came here to work as an RN because she likes this facility. Didn't like what was going on there. She fell in love with this place, staff, residents. She's here to stay. She works the weekend shift because she has children, and her husband is free on the weekend. So she was working at Essential 3 12s. So here doing weekends, loves it, wants to stay. But that fits into her scenario at this time. Perhaps when they're older in school, she'll do something else. But I don't see a guarantee of anybody staying, no matter what plan. Because on any given day, they will decide to leave. We hope we can sell this as staff and residents.
We haven't gotten to the point of the wage study yet.
Right.
We have a promise, a verbal with Mr. Hibbett and uh, getting into this wage study and having it done by the end of July. That in itself may help you in increasing the, value of your positions some way. In justification.
Just to add, it's in the long run, I think it'll help with gaining staff here and hopefully retaining staff. The crisis unfortunately is today and now. And with the wage study, I don't know that Parkview has the time to wait with the current staffing situation that we're in before a decision is made to at least do something in the interim.
I think there's two issues though, if I may. I believe that's what you're saying, is that there's two issues here. One is the flexibility to get the most out of your staff, to cover the shifts and deal with the ups and downs of staffing and needs and things like that throughout the day or the 6-week schedule. And then the other is, that's not gonna fix our 40 CNA deficit. That's not gonna fix the 10.5 nurses that we're down. It may help, and people will certainly, as well share, have a different appreciations for this work life schedule and things like that. But I sort of see it as two things. I think that what you talked about may be helpful in keeping the 6 spots or 6 neighborhoods open and continuing to offer the type of employment that's congruent with alternative, facilities. But there is still, I think, a large gap there. And I guess I'd like to know, how much you think these 3 proposals close those open positions and get us towards neighborhoods open, or does this just sort of steady the boat so that we're not closing a third neighborhood?
So I think to speak to that a little bit, last year we did the reclassifications of the CNAs and very significant. I think that we may find with the wage study that we're already behind a little bit in that world. You see, we have 40 open positions. We're not the only facility dealing with that. As Ashley said, that's kind of just the way of the world. I think when we're talking about our starting wages and some of the flexibility that we did within the nursing department to now be able to hire, for experience or, above and beyond that minimum level, we have seen some positive results of that. When we're looking at the wages, when I'm asking for data from other facilities and what their starting wages are, maybe they are less than Parkview's minimum wage, but they're offering $5 more an hour to work PMs or the weekend or those kinds of things. So that's where we're looking at how do we, in combination by doing these proposals, get our staff a little bit more in line with those types of things that are out there too. Because that's what they're telling us is yes, they come here saying they may start at $17 an hour as a CNA, but they don't get anything above and beyond that unless they're working overtime.
Just to let you know, Rebecca was at our meeting. We asked when that if the RPM proposal is going to be sent out there in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And
It'll be almost a month before you get replies on that. And it'll be 3 months for it to get done.
bring it at least by August. So
Okay, no, there's no way that you can get that much data.
We're still cranking away at the mic.
Yep.
And I think just to share with the group here as well, all of these ideas have been discussed many times and really tuition reimbursement, all of these other things that other people, I have a file full of all sorts of ideas and things that other facilities are doing. And when I talked with the county executive about where we're at and what we need to do, this is where we decided is the most critical need to do immediately now. knowing that those things are coming down and hopefully we will continue to reap some of the benefit that occurs countywide with those things. But we're really in a dire need.
And the thing with this is if we get a bunch more people in, we don't have to use any of these. We're not required to. So it's just an option for us.
Start a program, some educational program, an incentive program or something. You don't want to even think about throwing it out because now we've got enough, so we don't need to lean on that. You've got to be consistent. You have to have a plan to go forward with it beyond the point of, so that you become, your reputation depends on that. You can't flip-flop, is what I'm saying. You lose credibility immediately, and it goes around the entire educational cycle or circle.
But this last one is called the emergency staffing. Only if we're designated in emergency staffing need would that be used. If we're not in emergency staffing, then we might use something else.
I would put on this stuff. I'm sure everybody knows it, including the nurses on the floor.
Let me ask, what's the timeline and future so forth?
Our hope would be to conclude, we've already been working, we've put it on for a discussion item being the first meeting with this group. I know there are some other things occurring in other departments in the county and that's where, County Executive Damo asked that we kind of do that combined with some of those other proposals that are coming in the month of June. So our hope would be to really have the agenda memos completed with some of that other additional information, costs and those sorts of things that are going to be asked for us for your next committee meeting in June, and then proceed through with those.
If I think we need one more go around here before we toss this to the county board. Yeah, I think yeah, we'll turn like, but yeah. Right. Well, right. But what I'm saying is we need to have one more session here, so we've got a good grip on it.
Yeah.
Like to just lay everything out. Want to bring up the discussion.
We'll figure out on our last item is to figure out when we have a regular meeting. I think that's one of the things I'd
But
like.
you guys work here, we don't.
Right.
So you know what the price is. You can see it every day. So I know you've been here a while. So you're a good go-to person that you really see that, and you've been in nursing home care. So we haven't been. I understand what you're telling us, but I want to see something change for the better. We can't give away store, but we can make it better for the employees, right? Because they don't like mandating overtime. I can tell you that. Because when you do that, you take them away from their families, which they had plans. And I know you get them to work, but there's no anger issue. So if we can flex.
And I think what we intend to do with the new agenda prep memos that we're doing as department heads in preparation for the board meeting and kind of passing those through the committees would really to be putting that background information of all of the things that we are doing every single day, with being flexible with our policies and procedures and changing those types of things so that you get a good picture of really kind of that day in and day out and where we're at from the non-monetary standpoint and then where we're at from a monetary standpoint as well.
Yeah, I hear only good things about families who have members here. It's a great place to be. They take care of my mom and my dad. So I've not heard anything bad about that. That's why they want to come here, but it's just not the perfect time to come here. And they're not here because they're here. But it's in the community, it's spoken well of. So we have to keep that going. Yeah, that's what
That's all I had really for the discussion on that.
One thing that would be helpful for me is to also get a sense of how you know, how quickly are people or employees leaving? What does your like regular turnover look like? And then how are job applicants coming in? And so, you know, and sort of how does that look for you? Because I think with so many openings, I'm assuming you are clearly not getting enough qualified people to be bringing 40 people on. And even if you did, I bet that would be a nightmare for all your supervising staff. But like, you know, what, you know, I don't know, like what, you know, what's happening with that? Are we getting like 5 people a month and
Yep.
one of them is qualified and, you know, that's all we can bring on? I think that would be helpful a little bit. I understand that, like I said, part of this is about fixing this immediately right now, but I do think that a lot of this is also intimately tied in with a long-term staffing issue.
Right. And just to add just one more thing to that as well, we do have another item we intend to go for discussion and action with this group next month. That is somewhat tied with this proposal as well. But what we're intending to do is transfer some of those CNA positions into hospitality aid positions. So that our hope would be, you know, Ashley and I have had some discussion, and even in the time she's been here, we've never had 40 CNAs filled. So really looking at with the creation of that hospitality aid position and how they're supporting on the neighborhoods now, we're hopeful that we can transfer a few FTEs into that role and then hopefully get people in, because we are seeing our hospitality aides come in and they're kind of getting their feet wet, and then they decide they may want to become a CNA, and then we can put them through that course. So that will also go for next
Somebody
month.
came in, or 18-year-old male or female came in here, said, I want to be a CNA. How quickly, and I knew it used to be a 6-week course for CNA certification. How quickly can you get that person to be a CNA?
It is 75 hours of class time, which includes the clinical, and then it's the orientation out of the course. Each orientation is a little bit individualized to the person and how much they can work, or essentially to their learning. Okay. So some may need more than others, but essentially 3-4 weeks. All right.
Good turnaround.
We have a connection with the UWO's nursing program.
That's where we get our preceptors, or they send nurses here to come and they ask for preceptors from us. So we have to have an RN in the building that's willing to be a preceptor, but then they send and we pair those two up essentially, and they come in and do their clinical rotations.
Get something
We have gotten
going.
some staff that way.
Get something going, both with education and with the relationship you have with the department.
And to go along the lines of the hospitality aid too, that's a free high school student position where somebody can come in and work 4 to 8, help us with supper, fill resident water glasses, things like that, that gets them into this field. So
For neighborhood.
of hospitality aid.
Yeah, I mean, when I was there, there was one for sure.
If we had just one for the first transition, when we implemented the position, we transitioned 16 FTEs. So we did 8 for AMs, 8 for PMs, and we would like to do another 6 to do part-time in between and possibly even a night shift. So.
So you're with like high school kids, and my granddaughter's been doing that since last year, but I don't know where she's doing it this year or not. University School of Nursing. So
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of success with that position since that's been brought on and really allowing us to get people in and, you know, at least even see what we do and show that
somebody
interest.
that's older, they just want to be working in the nursing home. What can I do for 4 hours?
That's what I had. Person night came from Walmart. The person in the daytime was the person who came from quick shop.
Yeah. And we see people that, you know, can't physically do the work that want to be involved or want a position like that and choose to take those positions on too. So.
Well, our teammates instead of retiring too, will transition.
Any other discussion on the staffing crisis? Then we'll go to the financial report.
Okay, sent out a income statement for the month of April. Through April, we should be right around the 33% of both revenues and expenditures. There are a few that fluctuate more or less during different parts of the year. But the training is done more in the beginning of the year, and like heat and electric is a lot higher in the spring and the fall, and will even out more heat for sure. So going through the first page is your revenues. We're sitting at like 3,300,000, almost 3,400,000, which is down a little bit from last year, which is the preceding column. But that would be due to our census being a little lower. And then the same, if you look at the labor, is down almost comparable to what the revenue is down. And because we are staffing less neighborhoods and able to do that. A couple items to note as we're going through. A couple that are pretty consistent. And so if you look at our taxes and assessments, that's our per charge bed fee. That's on the third page, about a quarter of the way down, 85,000. That's so much per bed per month. It doesn't matter how many people are in the building. It's just how many beds you're paying for. So that's why it's almost exactly the same as last year. And then another one is our professional services right at the bottom of page 3, and that would be contracted RNs, LPNs, and some CNA work there. If you look over towards on the fourth page, it kind of gives you a total at the bottom, surplus deficit. So in here, we're showing a deficit of $540,000. So, actually, no, 734,000. And the number below it, the 562,000, that's how much, if we would have taken what was budgeted for us being at this point, based on how much fund balance we've had to apply in our budget for 2022, we're 500,000 ahead of where we would have been if we would have been right at budget. So we're actually doing relatively well.
Any questions on the finance report? Any questions or comments about the finance? All right, we'll move on to our next topic. Next item, suggested topics for our next meeting. We have a couple items already, action items for the staffing. Any other suggested topics?
First of all Jackie is the chairman of the ARC today. I'm not asking you today next month, but is everybody study of the sustainability of Parkview and picking open and alive or whatever, and I think it's what you want. And I'm not saying we have to do next month. I'm saying maybe possibly all and the second thing I asked, I'm under here. We do the awards every year, and I guess I asked you. you believe you have maybe wheelchairs that we borrowed in the past, and the past, if you would be willing to borrow, I think, one or two for the bigger people. And then June 25th of this year.
Just a one-time use.
Yeah. You can either tell me, or you could tell Steph Roberts, who's the
Yep.
PVHC.
Number 8, future meeting dates. So I think this is probably a bad time for a lot of people. I know it's a bad time for me and my little one. And certainly, so I want to start with asking Kara to think or talk to us a little bit about the cadence of both the county board meetings, personnel and finance, and what might work well within your regular schedules. And then we can discuss from there, sort of, finer points about when.
So we're very open to day and time. There's really nothing major that, the later in the day like this is fine for us any day of the week. However, as you mentioned, Supervisor Cox, with personnel and finance being the Thursday after our previous meetings being on Tuesday, that doesn't allow us really any time in between to add on to that agenda. And historically, then we either would be scrambling to get something on the agenda last minute or having to be pushed out to the following month, then in turn, turning some of our proposals and things 2 months out from the county board. So
Don't do that to John. He writes the agenda. He needs everything there a week and 3 days.
Right. Yep.
10 days in advance to when our meeting is.
And that's what we do for this committee too. I know this one was a little bit unique in the date and time being changed and things like that. But that's kind of, Hacienda helps facilitate that as well. We usually try to do that 10 days in advance. And then you're seeing multiple amended agendas and things like that because of the cadence of how that is. So our request would either be, first thing after the board meeting of the month so that we have the opportunity to have enough time if we have something for that personnel and finance committee. The majority of the agenda items that review has on the committee go to PNF almost always before they go to the county board. So that's our only there.
So, rule change, and first of all, the first week was bad, right? First week. That's fine. I'm fine with the time, Mr. Chairman. I like, you talk to me at 5 o'clock, but I know that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna have to ask off this meeting anyway, so I'm open to any time along the side with other people that I'm candidates. And so you put me a day of the month and I'll listen to it. I will say, this meeting last couple of years, Mary Beth, and second Tuesday,
First Tuesday, except when special orders, then we meet the following Tuesday. And that seems to work, but then you gotta remember, we've got other committees that are.
They just told me that the first week would not work for us because we met on Tuesday. Two days later, we'll do that meeting and it worked, so.
If you pull it back enough, it's just what you're looking for. But if you pull it back to within days after the board meeting, seriously, days. Always meet on Tuesday. The Thursday after the board meeting, or Friday after the board. I don't think you want Friday, but the Thursday after
I don't know if this is a big point to you guys, but it is to me when we meet.
I have to ask off.
You wanted 3 to 5, so I'm good with 3 to 5.
I mean,
Yes, because we used to make a quarter to 4, so that's cool.
I mean,
But Fridays are out.
No,
Mondays are
Friday.
good.
I
So, and I'm not next to me here, but PNF meets on a Thursday. Wednesday morning.
Yeah, we changed it, we're meeting on Thursday, but 9 o'clock. instead of 8 o'clock.
Okay. And aviation, if we went back, we'd have to work 8 o'clock that Wednesday. So herein lies the fact that if you have 2 meetings on one day, you're not gonna get paid. And you can say you don't care, but I don't really care.
If you have 2 meetings
Yeah.
on one day.
So I know how to feel.
2 meetings on one day, they're 2 separate meetings.
But it isn't a point here, but what's wrong with Tuesday?
What's wrong with Tuesday?
If we met the Tuesday following the county board meeting.
And then you're at the end of the month.
I don't know. Housing authority, I go to Tuesday.
Every month?
Every month. I will be conference once at a time, it can't be a 3 o'clock, do that in 3 o'clock. I'm going to conference a little like the other day, but yeah, well, I guess, so.
I think, what I'm hearing is that it makes the most sense to speedily move things from this committee to personnel and finance. Or facilities, certainly. That we meet Wednesday, Thursday, Monday or Tuesday following the board. Am I catching you correctly?
Well, I don't have a full calendar to know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm guessing at it, but let me just see what I've got. Let's see.
Thursday would probably be the best. After the board meeting.
That only leaves us 1 week to get anything on P and L.
No, I don't
Well,
know.
it's either you got 1 week to get it to us, or you wait a whole
Thursday
month,
afternoon,
The board meeting is on the 24th.
2 days after.
or Tuesday.
Here's where our county board meets this.
Yeah.
So if you were to have it on, say, Thursday, after the county board, every time.
Thursday, if that's.
Yep.
follow suit with the county board meeting.
Yeah, it would be an open, for me, it would be open. I don't know.
Then we have
about
plenty
anybody
of
else.
time to get something to P and L.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
You're
because-
saying we're crammed right now.
Right,
The first Tuesday meeting.
if we take a look at the Thursday, which is the 19th, and then we roll over here, and we got P&F showing up on the 2nd of June. Okay? You see what I'm saying? You almost got 2 weeks to get it in there, if you can.
Almost a full week, definitely, but the Wednesday before.
If you get something out on the Wednesday before Joan, then she's got a week to pull it together.
I actually have great flexibility.
She would probably be very happy with that.
So, Dana, you would be able to pick the 3rd Thursday of the month?
That would work for us. That's fine.
Thursday and Friday would be.
What time?
But you're gonna have another meeting this month. Are you getting at
I
that?
guess that's my question for you. I want to make sure that we're giving enough time.
Are you still here the third Thursday of this?
I will be here still.
Well, that's.
Is that going to be enough time to prepare?
Yes,
Yeah, we have
we,
most of it.
we have most of it done. We actually intended to present it through May.
That's the 26th.
Third Thursday.
Thursday's the 19th.
Oh, yeah.
16th is our.
I'm not here on the 19th. No, I'm not.
17th is kind of work.
I'm sorry, the 17th is county board, right?
Correct.
The Thursday right after county board.
19th.
I'm not here for that day.
You're gone?
I'm gone just that day. Normally the
Well,
the
you know
third
what?
Thursday.
Guess we're gonna charge.
Yeah. We can absolutely you know, and really I can look at my schedule and I may be able to make this meeting work if I have to do that too. So if that's what.
I
works
think
for
we
you
should
guys.
start.
Yes, there's the rotation, the way you want to.
Now, remember, there's,
June 2nd.
there is June 2nd on here. That's giving you almost 2 full weeks.
Yeah.
But you want to have it done by the
And typically,
following Wednesday.
really what we present at this committee, most of the time goes right to PNF as it
Pretty
is.
much
It
finalized.
doesn't work then on that Thursday for folks, and we'll kind of start that.
Start on the 19th.
Afternoon or before 10.
Okay, and he can't. I don't know. Why don't you see what you can come up with? Can you do 3:45?
I can do 3, well, actually, that day I can't do that. So I've rocked the block that day, so. But I can do the afternoon, like after 3 o'clock. So.
That Thursday.
3:30? 3:30,
3:30 works for me.
I don't know. I mean, I can do 5 o'clock, but I don't know if it's not gonna be, but I mean, I feel, oh.
Okay.
In general, though, 3:30 is gonna be an acceptable
Yeah,
time that we can all plan around.
I need part time. I'll give you that on 3:30 on Thursday. Thursday.
Fourth week, or third week.
Thursday is good, yeah. Third Thursday.
On what meeting?
At 3:30.
3:30.
Starting on the 19th.
That actually.
We're gonna try to.
All right, we'll try to continue here, as long as that is still preferable for the administrators and, also obviously.
We'll see how it goes.
To grow it with, yeah, with.
I just really want 48 hours between, so.
Just trying to keep you clear of what Joan, because she wants that definitely. She's got that much time.
All right, before we adjourn, Kara, I want to give you, I'm new to this board, but I want to express my thanks, for your time here and, continuing to lead through a obviously tumultuous and storied chapter of this great facility's history, and appreciate everything you've done to continue to steward this asset and maintain that reputation. Wish you luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so
We've
much.
got one pandemic under your belt.
Got 2 facilities,
Hopefully that's it.
too. Maybe 3 now, I don't know what I'm doing.
If there's nothing else, we can take a motion to adjourn. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, you're adjourned. 5:53. Thank you all so much.
You got all that, for your first one there? Cool. I got it. Yes.